Do you feel like compression is hard to understand? Then you learn a little bit more and realize you still don't quite understand it? I did. So today, I'm going to give you my top 7 compression mistakes and what I learned from it. You ready? Let's get into it. Mistake number 1, copying the plugin settings of popular mixers. When I first started, engineers finally started sharing what they were actually doing to get that artist sound. Instead of realizing that every piece of audio has its own unique needs, I would just copy the settings and wonder why I couldn't quite get that sound. What you want to do is figure out the underlying motivation of why the popular mixer is choosing the plugin and settings and apply the fundamentals to your song. This is going to require you to get a basic understanding of compression and also reading the manual. I know you didn't want to hear that. Mistake number 2, not listening to the raw vocals and asking myself what it needs. That's right, I used to be a drag and drop template engineer. I would place the audio in my session and get to work without even knowing what the audio needed. A template is supposed to just be a framework to keep you organized, not preset settings to use in a static way each and every time. Bypass the plugins in your settings, actually listen to the audio, then get to work. Mistake number 3, not understanding that many compressors actually add tone. Long ago, I would get an artist's vocals, do some subtractive EQ, then add a compressor and wonder why the audio sounded so much different. I assumed it was because the compressor was limiting the dynamic range and kind of playing tricks on me. However, it turns out that many plug-in compressors actually emulate older hardware compressors and add additional tone, color, and saturation. So you want to make sure that you actually read the manual so you know what's going on underneath the surface. Mistake number 4, allowing my compressor to pump. To me, allowing vocals to pump is essentially getting a strange spike in volume from your compressor. This came from me just essentially setting a compressor on a vocal, not really paying attention to the attack and release, setting it, and moving on, not really listening critically to exactly what the compressor was doing. When you're compressing, make sure you're listening to the rhythm of the vocal and how the attack, release, gain reduction, threshold, essentially how everything is impacting it. I recommend actually bypassing and reactivating your plug-in compressor every so often so that way you can see exactly what's happening. You want to make sure that you're actually improving the sound and simply not just changing it. Mistake number 5, not realizing that EQing before the compressor makes it react differently than EQing after the compressor. A compressor reacts differently depending on if you put an EQ before or after it. Essentially, the compressor is reacting to all the frequencies contained in the audio. So if you have an EQ before it, and let's say you're cutting, the compressor is going to react to those frequencies. So let's say you have an EQ before compressing, you decide to boost a lot of frequencies. That compressor is going to react to those boosted frequencies. These days, I tend to add a subtractive EQ, then add a compressor. There's not one way to do anything in this process. We're essentially doing this craft to satisfy our clients. However, for my personal process, I like to add subtractive EQ, then add a compressor, and then from there, there's any number of things that I can do to mix a vocal. Mistake number 6, having one compressor do all of the work. Comp was the very first plug-in compressor that I actually purchased. I would just put this on all of my vocal tracks, let it do all the gain reduction, and that was pretty much it. If this method is working for you and you're getting the desired results that you want as well as your clients, then don't let me influence your process. This is a game of satisfying the clients, and music is subjective, and we're doing this to our personal taste and the satisfaction of the people that we work with. However, these days I just use Comp as a transparent compressor, meaning it doesn't add any color or tone or saturation like I mentioned earlier in the video. After that, I'll follow up with additional compressors to add color, tone, gain reduction, saturation, whatever I feel is needed to bring the best result. And mistake number 7, not using multiband compressors. See, I would use multiband compressors such as C6 sidechain by Waves to duck out, let's say, lower frequencies in an 808 to allow a kick to cut through a mix, but I never really understood the process of using a multi-band compressor on, let's say, just a vocal to control the dynamics, tone, or shape of the vocal. It's just not something I would do previously. These days I use a multi-band compressor on almost every vocal that I work on, and I can't see myself living without it. It gives me so much more creative control over the sound of the voice. And as a bonus mistake, I'm gonna have to go with one that happens quite frequently, and this is overcompressing. When I first started engineering, I would compress the life out of a vocal. And the reason is because I come from a beat making background. And typically as a beat maker, whenever we have something dealing with vocals, we tend to smash the dynamics and tuck that vocal all the way in the back of the beat, so that way the main vocalist can actually shine through in the beat. We like to just cut all the dynamics out of the voice like a vocal sample and then push it all the way in the back. That is not going to work whenever you're actually mixing a vocal for a recording artist. To this day, I have a sneaking suspicion that a person whose primary role is a beat maker has actually mixed the song whenever I hear that the vocals are totally smashed and also tucked in the background of the beat itself. It's almost like there's a vocal and a beat, and the vocal is the co-star of the beat itself. It's not an actual song that's been mixed and produced for the fans to enjoy. So if you're having issues on learning how to compress vocals at all, I recommend using Metric A/B. This is gonna be a great tool for you to use to A/B compare the mix of the vocals that you're working on personally and using a vocal that's commercially out that's similar to the vocal that you're mixing, so that way you can compare what are some of the mistakes that you're making and what are some of the characteristics that the professional, let's say more seasoned engineer is actually doing. This is going to cut down on a lot of the learning process, and I wish this was something that I did in the beginning. I didn't, so I'm here to share this tip with you. My name is Desmond A. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll be back with more great tips. Peace.
Desmond A.